Welcome to Sharing Hope. My name's Mark James. I have Scott Hamilton here. He needs no introduction, but just a few things about Scott. Olympic champion, cancer survivor, broadcaster, motivational speaker, author, and eternal optimist. Scott, I'm so glad that you could join us today.
Yay! Yeah, eternal optimist. That's my favorite. I have a friend in California. In fact, we just got off the phone a few minutes ago, and he goes, "I can't even talk to you anymore." And it's like, "What?" He goes, "You find good in anything." It's like, well, it's kind of not bad to kind of be that way. I've just been devastated, when we watch the news and we hear about the loss of life through this COVID virus and how unnatural it is for people to be, having to be away from other people, because we're designed, we're wired to be in community and to be in close proximity and share and engage. And this is just it's so unnatural. And to see, again, just how this is all is taking place, but to find the blessings in that, for my family, it's, we're forced to, not leave the house, and we're here together, and we're having meals together, and we're always so busy that we got hockey over there, and we got, soccer over there, and then we got this over here, and I gotta travel to do this. And it's like, no, we're here for a long period of time. And it's just changed the family dynamic in such a healthy and powerful way that if anything else, those will be the memories that I hang on to, during this period. I'll look back on this and I'll remember those that struggled, and, we have friends that have gone through it and they've gotten through it, which is great. And I just think of all the families that have impacted negatively and forever. And I just feel like, all we can do is be a part of the solution and not be a part of the problem, and just, stay home, isolate, stay away from it. Don't spread this thing, and just be just for this time being. And in that, we've really, we've gotten closer as a family.
Oh, that's great. There is beauty in some of the challenges around us. And I concur. I've seen that in my own family as well. I've had more home cooked meals consecutively than I think I think ever. So, and that's not a bad thing. So,
and look what it does to the budget too. I mean, it's so much cheaper to eat at home. It's like crazy. And, it's like, I'm not working right now, so I might as well save a little bit of money on food, but it's just, and I've learned this, over and over and over again. It's just like, anytime anything like bad or negative has happened to me, like there's been always something on the other side that just sort of, it almost kind of, it wouldn't have happened had it not been for that, right? So, I look back on, the fact that, when the very beginning, I was an unexpected, unwanted child to a mother who had probably other options, but I'm here. And I was adopted, and it was really funny because in all this time that we've had, I've been cleaning out my garage, which has really been a huge thing. It's amazing when you're as old as I am, how much junk you just accumulate over time. And we'll go through it later. We'll just find time and go, and you never do, right? So now I'm going through it. I found my adoption papers. I found the piece of paper that acknowledged it was dated March 11th, 58. It was like months before I was born. It was like 6.5 months before I was born that my parents were accepted to pursue fostering and adopting a child. And I found all this stuff that was in a box with all my dad's old things that we kept all those years ago when he passed away. And it's like, wow. I mean, and then it ties things together. But, when adopted, and then I got sick, and I was in and out of hospitals for 4 years. And then to give my parents a morning off, I started skating, and I got better. It's all these things that, like, all the good things have come out of like negative situations. Like, I look back and I look at my family. It's like I got an amazing wife, and I've got 4 kids, and none of that would have happened had I not had cancer. So it's, taking that long view of, yeah, there's going to be periods in your life that really just knock you down and you're thinking, this is just the worst thing ever. And then I just sort of, it's gotten to the point now where when my brain tumor came back for the second time, like I'm lucky in cards too, like health stuff is crazy. when I the second brain tumor came back, it was funny. Michelle, who works with me, she was like crying a little bit, but she giggled at the same time. And it's like, okay, what just went through your mind? And she said, and I remember like it was yesterday and it was so awesome. She said, I can't wait to see where this one takes you. Because when you spend enough time with me, you realize that like a lot of bad stuff's going to happen. And then there's something kind of great on the other side, and it's that roller coaster, but it's really high and it's really low. And it's almost like I wouldn't mind this for a little bit, but it's been kind of that. And I just built that muscle where, life is hard at times. And if it weren't, you wouldn't have anything to compare the good times to, right? But it's meant to be, like the varying of emotions. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them. Or, our ability to kind of be resilient. I tell people all the time that, our bodies are really fragile and they're very vulnerable to a lot of things. But at the same time, they're phenomenally resilient, but ultimately temporary. So we got to kind of live our days, right? We got to just live our days. And whatever is next. So live our days joyfully, live our days productively, live our days in community, live our days in service, live our days sacrificially. I mean, there's all those days that we have to just kind of figure out that, I've got this going in my office all the time, right? It's my little hourglass and it's 30 minutes, Michelle. I figured it out. It's 30 minutes. But it's like, I look at that and it's like, that's time, right? That's time going and we got stuff to do. Let's get it done.
That's great. That's great. So we're on the clock.
We're on the clock.
I see that. I see that. So you mentioned beauty, and I've heard you in some other interviews use the phrase "just deciding." That there's beauty all around us, but we have to just decide. Can you expound on that?
Well, it's just decide, how we're going to embrace it, how we're going to take it in, how we're going to allow it to do what it's to do. I mean, before, we opened up the talk, you and I were talking, and it's like every single person. And I was saying literally, and I thought about this, I was sitting on this little lawn section at Disney World. And we're there with about, 30,000 people in this park, right? And I'm exhausted because we just done every roller coaster and it's just like waiting in lines and it's toward the end of the day. And I'm just sitting there in this lawn and I'm watching people go by me. And it's just like every single person has such a rich and phenomenal story to tell. They just do. And even if they don't think it's interesting, it would be fascinating to somebody to hear it. And I'm looking there, I'm like, oh, that woman right there, I bet. And I just started using my imagination. And in that way, it's like everything becomes richer and more colorful and more beautiful. It's just thinking that, you've got this guy and he's wearing a VFW cap. And it's like, what war was he in? And who did he know? And how was he part of the solution that allows us to live the way we do now? And it's like, I'd love to have him for at least an hour just to talk to him.
Absolutely.
And you get excited, you get excited about, other people and it's just those little things that, get me so like worked up, and just, watching, a 4-year-old eat ice cream and the mom sort of wiping the chocolate off their face and there's just beauty in everything. And we just have to just allow ourselves to be still and kind of just take it in.
That's great. That's awesome. One of the things that a phrase that I think is played back to you often is you say the only disability in life is a bad attitude. And of course, you describe yourself as an eternal optimist. We talked about that at the top here. How can we shift our attitudes and be positive during quarantine and COVID-19?
I think for everybody, it's going to be different. If you're, we've got 6 people in our house and it's chaos and it's like, do your homework and you're late for this and you got to eat something good and put that sugar down and all that stuff, But there's so many people that I adore and they're kind of without, they're home alone and it's harder, But I after my brain surgery in 2010 that became 9 surgeries because there was an artery nicked and it became an aneurysm and they couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. And it was one thing after another. And it took about a month and a half of just one thing, like 9 surgeries. There were 3 days where I had to lay flat on my back on a 15-degree angle, no more than a 15-degree angle for 3 days. I had to lay there without moving. And it gave me a lot of time to think about stuff. And it was like, I was coming out, I'll go back to the first surgery. I was coming out of anesthesia and I was in a hallway and all the elevators were down. They couldn't get me up to ICU. And I was crashing off the anesthesia and I was shivering and I was like spasming and all that kept coming into my mind was just breathe, relax. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And I just kept saying it over again and my body got still and the spasming stopped and the shivering stopped. And I remember sitting in that hallway and I look up at my anesthesiologist. There's a guy named Matthias. I remember him really well. And his eyes are this big. It's like, oh no, we got to go. We'll be okay. And I go, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And it was just like, I just got still in the moment. And I realized in that moment that I was wearing a leg brace. Now, I was in for brain surgery. Why am I in a leg brace? It's like, I don't want to know at that point. I'm like, information will be given to me on a need-to-know basis. But in the meantime, the one thing that stuck with me was this too shall pass. And I don't know if it was Holy Spirit. I don't know what put that thought in my mind, but I just kept saying it over and it allowed me to endure a really rough situation. And so most of the day I was wearing a shirt that says, this too shall pass. And it's to remind me, during times that, there's storms, there's storms and we're going to, have to ride these things out sometimes. And they're not easy and we just do the best that we possibly can. And that's part of the experience. You're looking at these times where, life was hard and, we were cruising along. The economy was like, just chugging. Everybody, it's like lowest unemployment in decades and, ever. And then all of a sudden this virus, like what? I mean, it's a flu bug, right? Well, no, it's more than that. And it's frightening and some people just get it and it's like what? So everything, like no one could have predicted this, right? But at the same time, I'm looking at financially get hit. Okay, that's there's a lot of people a lot worse than I am, but I'm in this to be a part of the solution. And I look at this and it's like we just gotta hope and continue to pray that by cooperating and just being still in this time that we can prevent the spread of this illness and pretty soon the virus will work its way out and we'll go to zero and hopefully if it comes back they'll have a prevention or a medication to take care of it. But right now I look at this as one of those storms. We just got to do our part to ride this thing out. My first 3 weeks in Tennessee, it was thunder and lightning storms every single night. And I'm looking at my wife going, really? Really? This is like professional weather here. This is like tornadoes. And it's like, really? And it's like,
this is the real
after
stuff.
the 3 weeks, it was glorious, So we got to get through these times and we've got to just look at them as storms. And, storms come and they go and we've just got to hang on to, the best parts of ourselves and not be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution.
you're outspoken in a positive way about your faith. Can you share a little bit about, the role faith has played throughout your life and your journey in recent years?
Well, it's always been there, whether I recognized it or not. I think you can go back and trace events in our lives where we maybe, we didn't know enough yet, or we didn't recognize it yet, but it was like, wow, that thing happened, and where did that come from? And I don't know, I always believed that I just didn't really know how to do it. I grew up in sports, and my wife's trying to call me. I grew up in sports, and there's rules to every game, and I just felt like that faith was like that too. There were rules to the game. There were situations where I need to understand how to do things and do them correctly, or otherwise I'm not going to win the game, right? And it wasn't until I got with the right people to guide me, when I got to the right situations where I could understand more the arc of the story, where God reveals himself, and he creates everything, obviously, but he reveals himself, and people start to understand and worship, and then the whole battle lines of good and evil, and how you can be pulled away from what's good, and all those things started to come alive to me in a really profound way. And in that, I realized that time I sat on a rock in the middle of a pasture in Illinois when I was 13 years old, just begging to God just to be with me, because I just couldn't. I just felt so alone, and not realizing in that moment that there was a shift change where things just sort of something happened there, and I can always go back to that moment, and just something happened there, and I still wasn't living out my faith. I tried to read the Bible, but I didn't understand it, and then it was like, well, things will reveal themselves in time. It just takes time. And so it was when I met my wife. We were dating for a few months, and she goes, okay, we're starting to get more into a dedicated situation. I don't want to, but if we're going to do this, I need you to answer a question for me. And I just said, I'll tell you anything. I really am happy. This dating thing has been great, and I'm really in this thing. And she goes, I need to know where you are in your relationship to Jesus Christ. And I was like, and I mentioned to you earlier, I said when any smart guy would say, it's like, well, where do you want me to be? And so it's
Amen.
And so I told her all of my misgivings and misunderstandings and confusion over how it all works. And she just said, let me introduce you to my pastor. And so I met Ken Durham, 6 foot, probably 7'5", 7", something like that. And I'm just like, I'm looking up at this giant man, and we walked through it. When I told him all of my misunderstandings, he just said, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it was all about religiosity. It wasn't about faith. It wasn't about understanding God and what he sees in us and what he wants for us. And so learning and growing, and to this day, I still joke that as much as I read, as much as I, every morning my pastor does a devotion on Facebook, which is amazing. His name is Steve Berger. Every morning at 7, he does this devotion. I'm up every morning, and I'm there taking notes, and I'm reading, and I'm learning, and I'm just getting inspired. It's the day, and it's phenomenal. And I just look at that, and I just get so happy. It just, what a perfect way to start the day, and to know that it's not just something we do, but who we are. And I never truly feel like I'm alone, because I always feel like, he's with me, and he's like with me all the time. And it's such a comforting thing. It also changes my decision-making processes. And it reminds me always, go toward the good, go toward what's best, go be selfless in many ways, and really try to understand not who you are right now, but who I am, who I'm guiding you to be. You know, this is just a piece of the story. It's not the story itself. So I'm in. I love it. I find these little nuggets. You know, having gone to Israel the first couple of weeks in March, the first time, and to see all of it come alive was just spectacular. And I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to stay there. It was an amazing trip with my 16-year-old son, and we got baptized in the Jordan River, and it was just unbelievable. So, yeah, faith has been, you know, as it was revealed and sort of as it took root in my life, it's been easily the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
Wow, that is that's inspiring, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, it's fun.
Well, Scott, we'll sort of last question for you. You've touched on some of this already, but you know, there's people in myriads of situations right now. You know, at Sharing Hope, our goal is to try and bring experts like you to the table to share bits of their story. Is there anything about your story that, outside of what you've already shared, that you think would be particularly helpful to those that maybe are struggling getting out of bed? They've lost their job. You know, they're just in a stitch right now, given COVID-19 and quarantine.
Yeah, it's so much of each day, and this is, you know, so I have so many like cliches that I'll just throw out all the time because I kind of live them. But I learned that, you know, every day is what you make it. You know, I've learned that, you know, there's always something. There's always some way to bring joy, to bring hope, and to bring health into your life. And regardless of your condition, you know, when I was going through chemotherapy, it was 5 days in a row of 8-hour infusions. And it's like, you're just getting pumped full of like the stuff that's just nasty stuff, right? And so, you know, the first round of chemo, I just took control of the situation, and just happened to be the week of the Masters where Tiger won his first Masters, right? 97. And it was like, okay, I'm going to remember this as really, I saw every single minute of coverage of the Masters. Never done that before, right? So positive spin, right? I now my hair was falling out, which falling out anyway, right? So it's no big deal. And then as I went through this, I realized that I can control my space. So no one was allowed in my room unless they made me laugh. They had to, you know, so people were wearing skinhead wigs and Beagle Puss glasses, and they were bringing in funny movies or telling jokes, or, you know, my nurse decorated my chemo bags with Snoopy stickers, and my Band-Aids were SpongeBob and Scooby. They treated me like an 8-year-old, and I was 38 years old, right? So it's realized that, like, in that situation, I could take control of it, and I could kind of take what would normally be, I could easily fall into that, oh, I don't feel good, oh, this stuff is going into my body, oh, I'm scared, oh, you know, it's like, it's, or I could find a way to put my thoughts in another way of just trying to inject some light into the situation and look back on that in that way, you know, joking around. Like the morning I had all my chemotherapy was done. I had to take 6 weeks off before the surgery, and the surgery was a 38 staple surgery. So when you're my size, 38 staples, that's most of me is like me. You know, sorry to be so graphic, right? So it's like fillet of Scott, right? So I remember I woke up in the recovery room, and there was this male nurse, and he was writing, and he was talking to himself, and he was not a happy camper. He was just grumbling. And I've got all these, like, you know, pain-killing drugs, and I was euphoric, and I was just like, I'm through with my cancer. I can get back to life now. And I had like all this stuff, you know, and he's just like, so on the way out, this is kind of weird, but on the way out, I noticed that his chair was on wheels. So as they were wheeling me back to my room from recovery, I just reached over and I grabbed the back of his chair, and he was getting further and further away from his work. And then you heard those little rubber shoes go, you know? And then he went, ah! Like that. He just like barked. And I was like, I laughed. I might have popped a few of the staples. I was laughing the whole way back to the room, probably the drugs. But at the same time, it was just another lesson of like, all this stuff is unpleasant and it's scary and it's not what we want. It just, but if you find a way to just adjust it, turn it, find something in it that you can, I don't know, read a book or learn a new language or dive into your faith or play an instrument, bother your neighbors, whatever. But if it, we're playing like this cutthroat Uno, and I taught my 12-year-old how to play backgammon, and we're doing that and we're having fun and we're reading the Prayer of Jabez over dinner and at the end of dinner, and we're doing things together that we would never do. And it's just like, I'm FaceTiming and we're doing all these calls. And one night, our neighbors, they wanted to have a happy hour. I don't drink, but so I set up a table with a couple chairs for me and my wife, and they were about 50 feet away in their driveway in their chairs, and we're just sitting there talking. And it was like we were social distancing and then some, right? But it was a way of cutting the monotony of just being stuck inside. And I've found house projects to do. I'm cleaning out the garage. I'm finding all these memories. There's always something you can do. And there's people that I needed to talk to that I haven't in months, and I would call them, and you can FaceTime like this. And there's always something there that just to own the space and to make it something that you can look back on and go, that could have been really horrible, but it was okay. And I'm going to carry these memories with me for forever, like those first few rounds of chemo, and just setting the ground rules and owning the space. And I don't look back on it as like I was sick. I remember being sick, but I remember more the positive aspects of it.